Good morning, welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Thursday, January 16th, 2025, and I'd say it's a little bit chilly this morning, which is very unusual because it has been bloody stinking hot lately, so a little bit of a welcome change. Neil is definitely welcoming the change in weather. He's got a little bit of an extra a little bit of spark in his step today. That's what they say, a little bit of spring in his step. I think that's the correct term, sorry. He has been rescued a couple of times in the last couple of weeks. So when I say rescued, well, he was rescued from the post office if you watch this video, when he decided to take himself for a walk while I was away. But a couple of times he's been rescued by my wife Tara, who he just hasn't been able to make it to the finish line. He's just stopped, slumped on the grass, laid there and won't move. So she's had to come and get us. And yesterday actually wasn't necessarily his fault. It started to rain, so he was rescued yesterday. So, but he does his best, a little fella. He loves his walks, and as I said, he does his best. All right, on to the boxing news. And well, was it big news? Or was it just news? Yesterday, Liam Wilson, Yusuf Dib 2, announced by No Limit, will take place on March the 1st in Brisbane. And good to see we're underway for 2025 as far as the events goes. I did sort of hear through the grapevine there might have been one in February. I think February would have been a great month to start, but at the end of the day, it's March 1st, so you might as well say it's sort of the same thing. But so what are we, about 7 weeks away? So look, it's great no matter what or when it is and where it is. It's great that we've just got boxing back, and I've got a feeling there's another pay-per-view. The first No Limit pay-per-view will be in April, so plenty to look forward to there. Still obviously waiting to hear what's going to happen with all the DAZN and Foxtel and all that sort of stuff as well. So plenty of big things happening this year. But onto that show itself. So Liam Wilson, Yusuf Dib 2. I must admit I was not surprised, of course, that Liam Wilson is back and on the march again. But the choice of opponent, I was sort of, why would he fight Yusuf Dib again? I mean, it was a good fight last year, it really was. But Liam Wilson definitively knocked out Yusuf Dib. So I'm not quite sure the relevance of the fight, but I can probably also understand that No Limit, I mean, it's a lot of money and rooting around to try and bring someone in from overseas. There's not really a lot here in Australia for him except probably Yusuf Dib. So, actually, having said that, where's Ibrahim Bella? Ibrahim Bella beat Yusuf Dib and Jalen Tate, hasn't been heard from since. So that would have been, for me, a better fight. But anyway, I get it. Maybe Ibrahim's not ready or out of favour or whatever. I don't know. But the fight itself, look, it doesn't really get the fires burning, if I'm being quite honest. But I understand, as I said, that, apart from Ibrahim Bella, bringing in someone from overseas would have been quite difficult, and maybe at this stage of the year, while things are getting organised, they've just got the purse strings a little bit tighter. Who knows? But look, end of the day, there'll be a reason behind it. The undercard was good. We'll get to that in a sec. But the big thing, obviously, I'm sure everyone noticed, was the fact that it is a co-promotion. So No Limit and Ace Boxing, which is something I never thought I would see, if I'm being honest. Ace Boxing and No Limit working together. But having said that, I love it. I welcome it. I think we should have more of it. And I think it's going to be Australian boxing that is the winner. If you don't know, Ace Boxing hasn't had the best relationship with No Limit over the journey, as with Tasman fighters. And it's nothing newer than what happens around the world. It's just boxing politics. Promoters, they upset each other in different ways, whether it's taking networks or streaming services away, or taking fighters away, or just being difficult to deal with, or just simply maybe having some words to say about the other one. It's just life. It's that competitive thing that happens with promoters. It happens with fighters. It happens with promoters as well. They get grudges and everything, and they try and make life hard for each other and won't work with each other. That's just the way it is. It's It's never been any different, probably won't be any different going forward. However, this is a great step, it really is, because I think No Limit have realised that if this is going to work in Australia, where they need a good stable of fights, they need regular main events, they need good Aussies fighting other good Aussies, and we haven't seen that. They put on some great shows, of course, but some of the best fighters in Australia haven't been on their shows. They've been on Ace Boxing or Tasman or whatever. Tasman, of course, have got their own deal now, so that's great. But we just haven't consistently seen the best Aussies in action on Fox Sports, the main platform in Australia. So I think it's fantastic that they've broken bread, as they say, and I think hopefully it will be the start of maybe a lot of the other promoters working together. And I think maybe it's the Turki Al Sheikh effect. He's brought promoters together. He works obviously with Oscar De La Hoya and Eddie Hearn. He brought Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren, then did the 5x5, and hopefully this is a bit of a spin-off effect from that, where No Limit and Ace Boxing have seen what those promoters have been able to do internationally, and have thought, well, geez, if we want the best for our fighters and the best for boxing, Australian boxing that is, and maybe there was a little bit of executives at Foxtel saying, enough of this shit, if you want to be on TV, you all work together, or none of you are on. Maybe that's a bit of the case, but no matter what, I think it's fantastic that they've sat down and put business before any personal beefs and all that sort of stuff. And look, the thing is, Matt Rose and George Rose are quite reasonable, nice guys, and on the other hand, Angelo Carlo is a nice, quite reasonable, fantastic gentleman of a guy. He really is. But put the business hats on, and they've obviously butted heads over the journey. So I think it's great that they've put business over all that and have sat down. And the other thing too, of course, that hasn't really been spoken about too much lately is the fact that 7 Plus looks to have pulled the plug on their boxing involvement, which is really disappointing. I mean, what hope has boxing got when a streaming service that apparently, Angelo and the other promoters tipped in a lot of money to try and make it work, and they've pulled the plug after 1 year. I think that's really disappointing, but there's always a silver lining, and maybe in line with the whole Foxtel DAZN situation, they have, maybe it's made the decision easier, and it's been a mutual decision, I don't know, and Ace Boxing have jumped straight in with No Limit. And again, it makes a lot of sense. I've spoken about this in previous episodes, that in order to have regular quality shows, I don't think No Limit would have a choice but to farm out some of the events. They did it last year with Wildfighter in Melbourne. I'm not sure whether they're going to be involved in 2025. I'm assuming they are, although maybe now that Ace Boxing involved, maybe they won't be, but I hope they are. So we have a bit of a Melbourne flavour or Victorian flavour as well. So they can't consistently just put on show after show after show and have quality fights or quality events. And we've seen that actually in the past. We've had a lot of the events are put together really quickly, because obviously it drags out time. This saves time by actually putting 2 or 3 shows together in close proximity. It fulfills our obligations, but the quality of the event really starts to get watered down. So I like the fact that they're going to do this in conjunction with someone like an Ace Boxing. And what you'll find, just like Wildfighter did last year, even though it's a co-promotion, you would probably see that Ace Boxing will probably do the majority of the work up there in Brisbane, and then No Limit will overlay their fighters on top and cover expenses. It's a bit of a complicated thing. I won't try and explain it all to you now. You'll the eyes will glass over and you'll wonder what the hell I'm talking about. But either way, no matter how you spin it, I think it's a great initiative by Ace and No Limit. Again, I think it'll be very, very beneficial going forward. And look, the undercard looked great. I see the pro debut of Cooper O'Connell. I think that'll be fantastic. Really looking forward to seeing Cooper in action. I think he'll be a good little pro. He's got plenty of time. Another young fighter on that card, Vegas Larfield. I think he was on the card there. I think he was. I did see him in the photo. Another great talent coming through. I did see, was it Jack Bowen was there, Dana Hill was there, so it's really good to see a blend of the No Limit and Ace Boxing fighters on the same card. And again, I never thought I'd see it, but I'm really glad that we are seeing it. So, but yeah, so and then of course, as I said, in April, it looks like we're going to have a pay-per-view. So plenty to look forward to for Aussie boxing over the next 12 months. What was the other thing I saw yesterday? We've spoken about it for the week. Chris Eubank Jr. And Conor Benn have made the fight official. It's going to be April 26th in London at 160 pounds. So that's probably about all I'm going to say about that. Good on them. They're going to get well paid. And good fight for English boxing. Back to Australian boxing. Now, it was reported yesterday that Sam Goodman, well, the good news, of course, the Aussie media couldn't wait to put it out there in their limited research that they do. They put it out there that the great news is that Sam Goodman will retain the #1 ranking with the WBO and IBF. Just grab his lead here. And they're all obviously high-fiving, and the reporter again, who I said, I think it was, what was his name, Jamie Palindom or whatever his name is. Jeez, oh, sorry about that. The real news is what's come through is that Sam Goodman has been issued a show cause notice by the WBO in order to retain his IBF belt. Now what that means is it's been reported to the WBO via No Limit that Sam Goodman won't be able to participate in any sparring activity until April the 11th. 3 months away. Yeah, that's how bad the cut was. So they're saying he won't be probably ready to fight until late May, if not into June. So they're petitioning to keep him as the WBO #1 challenger, as they should do, of course. They're his promoter, and in the best interest of Sam. So what the WBO have said, we need this show cause request is that they get a full medical report about the cut, and then they will decide whether he will retain the WBO #1 rating or not. So it's not just a given. So the WBO need all this proof, and I'm sure they'll get it. I mean, geez, if you're out of, if you just had plastic surgery and you're out for 3 months, well, I'm pretty sure that the report will give them all they need. But it's not just a foregone conclusion that he will retain the WBO #1 ranking. But again, that's the Aussie media for you. They will run with whatever story they are told. So No Limit could tell them that Sam Goodman is moving up to super middleweight and is now the IBF #1 challenger, and they would probably report it. They don't do any homework themselves, but that is the case. As I said, he hopefully will retain that WBO #1 ranking, but obviously no guarantees, and has actually been reported as well. Of course they wanted that fight with Inoue, but it looks like Inoue after this fight with Kim will fight Picasso, and then they're looking at the fight with MJ. Is it Medaliev or whatever it is? MJ Murajon Akhmadelev, whatever the hell his name is. But so it looks like Sam will not get a crack at him in 2025 anyway, even if he's elevated back to the WBO ranking as #1. The odds are he won't, because the WBA are going to want him to fight MJ because he's the interim WBA champion at the moment. So yeah, it's going to be tough for Sam to get another look in, I would think. And one last thing, I saw a thing come up, was it yesterday or last night, whatever it was. It was a 35-year anniversary of when George Foreman knocked out Jerry Cooney. And you probably think, well, so who hasn't knocked out Jerry Cooney? Hey, he was the great white hype there at one stage. But so it was 35-year anniversary, and they just went back. It was 1990, of course. But the relevance of it was that at the time, the big talk was that after that fight, that George Foreman was going to be next in line for Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson, of course, in February of that year would be knocked out by Buster Douglas, and their paths just would never cross. Now, folklore says that when Don King presented this option to Mike Tyson before he lost to Buster Douglas, he wanted no part of George Foreman. He said there's one fighter I don't want to fight, and that is George Foreman. George Foreman was very confident that he would do to Mike Tyson what he did to Jerry Cooney. So it had started. I do remember this, even though I was about 16 years of age. I still remember the talk of Foreman and Tyson. But the big question is, who would have won if they had a fought? I just think style-wise, it would have been a great fight, because I know George was big and slow and cumbersome, and guys like Holyfield and that made him not look second rate, but with the speed and the work rate, he really struggled with guys like that. Whereas Mike Tyson just coming straight ahead, throwing those big bombs, it would have made it a lot easier for George. We saw what he did against Joe Fraser, remember, back in 73. Not, of course, he would have been the same fighter as that, but I just think style-wise, it would have been a great fight. I still would have picked Mike Tyson. I don't think he would have stopped George, but I reckon he would have been capable of doing it. I think the fact that George just didn't move, he was like a big statue there, and he just poke out the jab and look for that uppercut or the right hand. He could punch, but he wasn't fast at all. And I've just got a feeling that back then in 1990, with the way Tyson used to slip and weave and come in really low, I'm not sure George would have been able to handle that. And I just think that maybe the accumulation of bombs over 6, 7, 8 rounds would have taken the toll, and I think he might have been able to get George out of there. But what a great fight it would have been. I remember when George came back, it was absolutely laughed at in 1984. It was 87, I think it was, he came back. And he was laughed at. It was 40, I think in 1990, by the way, it was 41. So he ended up winning, of course, the title 4 years later against Michael Moorer. But I think it would have been a great fight. I really do. And it's just, again, we spoke about yesterday with some of those big fights that never happened at heavyweight. And who knows, it would have been a great fight, Foreman and Tyson. And you remember what Foreman did to Jerry Cooney, by the way, in that fight 35 years ago. It was a second round destruction. So poor old Jerry, I don't think ever fought again. So anyway, guys, that's it for today. Give me your thoughts on the No Limit show. Would Tyson have beaten Foreman? Other way around, as always, put it in the chat there. And have a great Thursday, and we will catch you tomorrow.